Imagine seeing the earth from above, hearing the voice of Jesus, and receiving 3 clear signs before his return. Emily Parker experienced this, and the message is urgent. Now, listen to this striking story. Emily, what did Jesus say would happen when the blood moon appeared for 3 consecutive nights? My name is Emily Parker. I am 45 years old and live in Dallas, Texas. I am a head nurse at one of the city's largest hospitals, and my life has always been defined by routine and the responsibility of caring for others. From a young age, I was taught to respect the Christian faith. I grew up attending church every Sunday with my parents, singing hymns, and memorizing Bible verses, but over time, the flame that once burned so intensely within me began to fade. Work, bills, deadlines, and raising my 2 children consumed almost all my time and energy. I have been married to Michael for over 20 years, and together we have built a stable albeit predictable life. Faith was present, but only in the background. I would pray occasionally and read a verse here and there, but the truth is, my relationship with God was distant. At the hospital, I was respected for my dedication. I organized teams, cared for critically ill patients, and was always willing to extend my shift when necessary. Yet, deep down, I felt tired, empty, and often on autopilot. Weeks flew by and years piled up without me ever stopping to think about what truly mattered. A part of me knew I was living in a lukewarm zone, not cold enough to reject the faith, but not burning enough to let it guide my steps. And if anyone had asked me if I was ready to meet Jesus, my answer would have been a hesitant "I think so." Little did I know that this question, which seemed so distant, was about to become the most pressing issue of my life. It was a typical Tuesday at the hospital. The night shift was always the toughest, but I was used to it by then. It was past 10 o'clock when I finished reviewing the team's notes and prepared to make one final round of the rooms. That was when I felt a strange pressure in my chest. It wasn't ordinary pain, it was like a hot, suffocating wave that left me breathless. I tried to lean against the nurse's station, but the strength in my legs began to give way. A colleague asked if I was okay, and I remember opening my mouth to answer, but the words wouldn't come out. The hallway spun before me, the fluorescent lights blurred, and a deep, low-pitched buzzing filled my ears. I collapsed to the floor before I could call for help. Within seconds, a cold sweat covered my body, and my vision narrowed as if a curtain were being drawn shut. The last thing I saw was the worried face of one of the doctors rushing toward me. After that, nothing, no pain, no sound, just silence. Later, I was told that my heart had stopped for exactly 14 minutes. During that time, my colleagues fought to bring me back to life, but while my body remained in the air, I was already far away, on the verge of experiencing something that would forever change my understanding of God, time, and eternity. The silence that enveloped me was so profound that I felt weightless. I no longer felt my body, the pressure in my chest, or the coldness of the hospital floor. It was as if everything physical had been left behind. Gradually, I realized I was floating, as though something invisible were carrying me to an unknown place, a place that radiated an indescribable peace. Ahead of me, a light began to appear. It wasn't an ordinary light, the kind that hurts your eyes. It was alive, it pulsed and seemed to recognize me. Each ray seemed to pierce my soul, revealing everything I was, yet simultaneously wrapping me in a love so pure that my internal defenses simply melted away. As I drew closer, the light took shape, and then I saw him. It was Jesus. He stood before me, clad in robes of an indescribable white. His face radiated a glory that no photograph or painting could ever capture. There was no judgment in his gaze, only a love so intense that I understood, without a word being spoken, that he had known me since before my very first breath. "Emily," he said, speaking my name as if it were the only one in the universe. In his presence, I felt every moment of my life, every tear, every forgotten prayer. Then he spoke to me, "I have brought you here to show you what is to come and for you to carry this message to the world. Time is shorter than many imagine." In that instant, I realized I was not experiencing a dream or an ordinary vision. I was standing before the Son of the living God, and everything he said would be forever etched upon my soul. Jesus extended his hand, and the scene around us changed instantly. Suddenly, I looked at the earth, seemingly suspended in space. The view was breathtaking. Continents, oceans, and clouds, all in motion like a living sphere. Yet, as I grew accustomed to the sight, I noticed something unsettling. Entire regions were shrouded in dense darkness, as if a black mist were spreading, enveloping cities and nations. Elsewhere, points of light shone brightly, though in many places the glow seemed faint like a candle on the verge of flickering out. Jesus pointed to various regions and spoke in a voice that blended love and sorrow. "Look how the light has faded in many places where it once shone brightly. The hearts of many have grown cold. There are churches filled with people but empty of my presence. There are those who speak of me but do not truly know me." His words cut deep. He continued, "Before I return for my own, the world will sink even deeper into this state. The faith of many will waver, and the love of many will grow cold, but those who seek me with sincerity will be like torches in the night." As he spoke, the vision intensified. I saw families who once prayed together now living distracted lives, consumed by work, entertainment, and the cares of this world. I saw religious leaders more concerned with popularity than with truth, and I also saw small groups gathered in homes kneeling, weeping, and crying out for revival. Above them, a golden light shone brilliantly. I knew that what he was showing me was not merely for me to see, but to serve as a warning. The world was not ready, and time was running out. After revealing the spiritual condition of the world, Jesus fell silent for a few moments, as if allowing me to feel the weight of what I had just witnessed. Then, in a calm yet authoritative voice, he said, "Emily, there are clear signs that will precede my return, and the first will be visible to everyone. There will be no one on earth unable to see it." As he spoke, the scene around us transformed. I was standing on a hill, and before me stretched the clearest, most star-filled night sky I had ever seen. A large, brilliant full moon rose on the horizon. At first, it held its usual silvery glow, but gradually it began to change. First, an orange hue washed over its surface. Then, as if bathed in vivid ink, it turned completely red like freshly spilled blood. Most surprising of all was that there was nothing in the atmosphere to account for it. It was not an eclipse. There was no dust or smoke. The red seemed to emanate from within, as if the light itself had been transformed. Jesus looked at me and said, "This will happen at an unexpected moment. Astronomical calendars will not predict it, and science will have no answers. It will appear suddenly, just as people go about their daily lives, convinced that tomorrow will be exactly like today." As he spoke, I had a new vision. I saw families having dinner and rushing to the windows upon noticing the sky's unusual color. I saw children pointing in curiosity, the elderly weeping, and young people taking photos and videos. In various countries, journalists tried to explain the phenomenon. I saw scientists gathered at emergency conferences, presenting flimsy hypotheses that were quickly dismissed. Then Jesus continued, "The blood moon will remain this way for 3 consecutive nights. It will be the first warning. It is not merely a sign, it is a call. It is the moment when many hearts will sense, even without fully understanding, that something momentous is about to happen." In that instant, I realized this would be no mere spectacle celestial, but rather a direct intervention by God, visible to all so that no one could claim they had not been warned. I felt the weight of this sign, not merely as a celestial curiosity, but as the final touch before the world's clock began its countdown. After Jesus showed me the blood moon and said it would remain that way for 3 consecutive nights, serving as the first great warning, he fell silent for a few moments. His gaze was fixed on the horizon, as if he were watching something yet to come. Then he turned to me and said firmly, "Emily, 40 days after the moon regains its silvery glow, something extraordinary will happen. It will be an outpouring of my spirit upon the entire earth, unlike anything in history." Suddenly, my vision shifted, and I found myself beholding different places across the planet simultaneously, as though my sight had expanded to encompass every corner of the globe. In a simple African village, I saw a group of children gathered under a tree, praying on their knees with tears in their eyes and hands raised toward the heavens. They spoke with a conviction and an intimacy with God that defied all logic. In the center of a European city, a young man known for his rebellious behavior and mockery of the faith climbed onto a park bench to loudly declare that Jesus was real and had appeared to him in a dream. In the United States, an elderly woman woke in the middle of the night after having a vivid vision of angels and hearing the sound of trumpets from the sky. Jesus continued speaking as I watched these scenes. He told me there would be no barriers to this awakening. It would not be limited to a single church, denomination, or culture. It would happen simultaneously in remote villages and great cities. Children would prophesy with words of wisdom they had never learned. The elderly would have dreams filled with revelation, and even people who had never shown interest in spiritual matters would feel an irresistible need to seek God's presence. I also noticed that this movement was not centered solely in large churches. On the contrary, most of it was taking place outside the pulpits. I saw groups gathering in homes, schoolyards, public squares, hospital rooms, and even parking lots. It was as if a flame had been ignited in thousands of places at once, spreading like wildfire impossible to contain or control. I couldn't help but ask, "Lord, will everyone believe?" Jesus shook his head compassionately and replied, "No, Emily, many will try to explain it away, calling it mass hysteria or mere coincidence. Others will scoff and reject it, but for those who open their hearts, this will be the final call before the great deception arrives." He paused, and his tone grew even more serious. "This awakening will be intense, but it will not last long. It will come like a torrential downpour that quickly soaks everything, and then it will subside. 30 days after its peak, another sign will appear, and this one will be the most dangerous of all." Upon hearing these words, a shiver ran through my entire being. I knew I was about to hear something that would deeply shake my understanding of the end times. Jesus' words regarding a sign even more dangerous than the previous one echoed in my mind. My heart pounded, and I knew I was about to hear something that demanded my full attention. He looked at me earnestly and said, "Emily, 30 days after the great spiritual awakening reaches its peak, a man will emerge who will be hailed as the solution to all humanity's problems, but he will not come from me." The vision shifted again. I saw massive stages set up in different parts of the world and crowds gathered, some with tears in their eyes, others vibrating with euphoria. At the center of every event stood the same man. His face was intriguing. At times, he appeared kind and trustworthy. At other times, a barely perceptible shadow hovered over his expression, revealing something dark that made me recoil. Jesus continued, "He will be charismatic, intelligent, and eloquent. He will offer quick solutions to economic crises, armed conflicts, and even environmental problems. Political and religious leaders of various faiths will unite under his influence, proclaiming that humanity has finally found a path to peace, but this peace will be false." As he spoke, there was an air of hope, as if history were entering a new era, but Jesus allowed me to see what lay hidden behind that perfect exterior, a burning hatred for all that is sacred, an absolute contempt for God's truth, and a power that came not from heaven, but from the darkness. Emily continued, "Even some who claim to follow me will be deceived, for this man will perform signs and wonders that appear to be miracles. He will heal the sick, speak of love, and use kind words, yet it will all be to draw people away from me. He will not come with a drawn sword, but with a seductive smile. His greatest weapon will be deception." With every word, the gravity of what I saw deepened. I realized that this was not merely a political or religious event, but a pivotal moment. The world would be captivated by this man, and by the time they realized who he truly was, it would already be too late for many. And it was at that moment that Jesus said something that stayed with me. "This will be the final warning before the moment that changes history forever. I will not allow my people to experience what is to come." I knew he was referring to his return and that the countdown to that moment was already clearly set. As Jesus showed me the rise of the deceiver and the seduction he would bring upon the world, he remained silent for a few moments, as if wanting me to absorb the weight of the revelation. Then he drew closer, looked me straight in the eye, and spoke with a seriousness that made me feel every word as a personal call. "Emily, What you have just seen is not merely a warning for the world, it is a wake-up call for every person to examine their own heart. When I return, I will look not only for those who claim to believe in me, but for those who live prepared to meet me." He paused and continued, "There are many who have my name on their lips but live for themselves. They attend church and know the Bible, yet they have no daily communion with me. There are those who pray only when they need something and live in the comfort of a superficial faith. They are in danger of being left behind." As he spoke, a new vision unfolded before me. I saw rows of people holding lamps, like in the parable of the 10 virgins. They were all dressed to welcome the bridegroom, yet not all had enough oil. Some lamps burned brightly, while others flickered, on the verge of going out. Jesus explained to me, the oil represents the presence of the Holy Spirit in one's life. It represents a surrendered heart, a love that does not grow cold in the face of trials, and a constant watchfulness as if awaiting the return of a loved one. His words transcended any notion of mechanical religiosity. I understood that he was not speaking of human perfection, but of true surrender. "Emily, those who love me with all their hearts need not ask themselves if they are ready. They know, because they cannot live a single day without my presence. They place me above their own plans, above their own desires. They will hear the call of the trumpet and be among those who ascend to meet me." My heart sank. I knew Jesus was speaking not only of others but of me as well. He was calling me to examine my own life. In that moment, I realized that preparation was not something for the future but an immediate urgency, and I felt this was the central message of everything he was showing me. It is not enough to recognize the signs, one must be ready for when they come to pass. After showing me the need to be prepared and explaining that many would be caught off guard by their own lukewarm faith, Jesus took a step toward me. His presence was so intense that I felt as though every beat of my heart were in tune with his voice. He said to me, "Emily, now you understand why I brought you here. It was not just so you could see what is coming, but so you could become a witness. From the moment you return, this will be your mission, to speak of what you have seen and heard without fear and without worrying about who will believe you." Upon hearing this, I immediately thought of my life in Dallas, my job at the hospital, my family, and my friends. I imagined how they would react upon learning that I had seen Jesus and received revelations about the end times. A deep sense of worry washed over me. I said, "Lord, what if they don't believe? What if they mock me?" Jesus smiled with a tenderness that dispelled my insecurity. "Emily, do not worry about the outcome. Your role is to obey, not to convince. Some will laugh, others will reject the message, but those prepared by my Spirit will recognize the truth in your words. And remember, you will not be alone. There are people in different parts of the world receiving similar revelations. Together, their voices will be like a trumpet blast calling out to those who can still awaken." Then he extended his hand, and as if a screen were placed before us I saw scenes of people in distant lands confirming these same messages. In a modest apartment in South America, a young woman wrote in a notebook about a dream involving trumpets. In an Asian village, an elderly man shared a vision of a heavenly banquet with his neighbors. In a home in the United States, a mother prayed with her children after seeing a flash of light in the sky. Jesus concluded, "These messages do not come by chance. It is the final call for my people to be prepared, and you, Emily, are part of that call. When you return, live with the certainty that every word you speak could be the wake-up call that saves a soul for eternity." In that moment, I understood that my life would never be the same. I would return to my body with the same identity, the same address, and the same profession, but with a completely new purpose. When Jesus finished speaking about my mission, I felt a shift in the atmosphere around me. The intense light that had enveloped us began to fade slowly, like a sunset giving way to night. My heart ached at the thought of leaving that perfect presence. "Lord," I said, "I don't want to leave, I want to stay here." He placed his hands on my shoulders and answered with a gaze that was firm yet loving, "Emily, there is a time for everything. Your time to be here has not yet come. Now go and tell the world what you have seen, and do not forget it. I will return, and sooner than many think." In an instant, I returned to physical reality. It felt like falling from a great height and suddenly feeling a weight upon me. I heard agitated voices, the beeping of machines, and felt hands touching me, my face. I opened my eyes slowly and saw the white ceiling of the emergency room. A nurse, a colleague of mine, took my hand with tears in her eyes and said, "He has returned." My body was exhausted, and the pain in my chest was intense, but what struck me most wasn't the physical pain, it was the urgency burning in my spirit. I knew I had been dead for exactly 14 minutes, and that I had spent every second receiving something I could not ignore. Over the next few days, while still in the hospital, I began to share what had happened, little by little. Some listened intently, others looked on with skepticism, and some tried to explain it away as a hallucination caused by a lack of oxygen. Yet no opinion could erase the certainty I held. I had seen Jesus, and he had entrusted a message to me, and that is the message I leave with you now. When the blood moon appears and remains for 3 nights, know that time is running out. 40 days later, the great spiritual awakening will arrive like a torrential downpour. 30 days after the height of this movement, the deceiver will emerge. He will unite the world with promises of peace, but his very essence is deception. After that, Jesus will come for those who are ready. If you are hearing this story today, do not harden your heart. Preparation begins now. It is not about religion, it is about a relationship with the one who died and rose again to give you eternal life. If he were to come right now, would you be ready to receive him? I am Emily Parker, the same woman who collapsed in a Dallas hospital hallway, but who returned to tell us that Jesus is real, that he is coming back, and that time is shorter than we imagine. And I tell you with all my being, be prepared. What an extraordinary and transformative testimony. The Bible reminds us in Matthew 24:42, "Therefore keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come." Thank you so much, Emily, for sharing such a profound and hopeful experience, and to those who have watched this far, may the Lord's blessings fill your lives with peace and purpose. Stay alert, live prepared, and see you in the next A Woman Dies and Jesus,